Good afternoon, Purple family. Welcome to another episode of Shades of Purple, a Prince podcast. On today's episode, I'm going to be reviewing Prince's unfinished memoir, The Beautiful Ones. So I've been off all week, so that has given me the opportunity to go back and reread this. Of course, so this isn't my first time reading this book. I actually read it back in 2020. It came out in October of 2019, and I read it sometime in 2020 during the pandemic. And then on my phone, I actually downloaded it to my phone at the time because we were all at home, of course. And then I read it again last year. And so this is like my third or fourth time rereading it. And I wanted to reread it because I knew that I was going to be doing this review for the podcast. So I wanted to be as thorough as possible. And so I want to talk about some of the gems that Prince mentioned in his portion, and also some things that Dan talked about in his portion. So as you know, the book is kind of broken down into four parts. So the first part, The Beautiful Ones, is Prince and his handwritten account of his early life growing up in Minnesota. And then part two, For You, is Prince's early years as a musician before he started recording his first album, For You. And that is also, it comes with a connected, illustrated scrapbook of a collection of pictures and sample writings and things like that Prince did while he was recording For You. Part three, called Controversy, is more pictures taken during his early music career, leading all the way up until, of course, Purple Rain. There's more pictures and quotes from different interviews that he did at the time. And then finally, part four is called Baby I'm a Star, which is, of course, one of my favorite Prince songs. And this is basically the script for the beginning of what would be Purple Rain. This script, of course, was called Dreams. And it's kind of a very dark take on what would become Purple Rain. In this script, written by Prince, he basically has three characters that he works off of: Morris Day, Vanity, and himself. And in this script, like I said, it's really dark, and he has himself being, of course, the victim of domestic violence. His mother actually kills his father in this version. And throughout the script, Prince's character is playing off of versions of his mother or versions of his father. He, paints his father as being this ultra religious person, but then he beats on his mother. And then he has his mother as being kind of fast, kind of loose, and just wanting to have fun. And so Prince is a mixture of these two characters. The script I found to be very interesting. Like I said before, it was also dark, and Vanity is this character where she is like this snobby rich girl. And Morris Day's character is kind of like this homeboy, kind of hood, but he's almost like this pimp character, kind of reminiscent of Jamie Starr, if you will. So that's what the part four of the book is about. But I did write a few notes that I want to get into that Dan Piepenbring brought up in his introduction. So Dan Piepenbring was his collaborator, his co-writer on The Beautiful Ones. And he has a very long introduction where he basically talks about the time that he spent with Prince in the 3 months that he was in communication with him about the book. So he starts talking in January of 2016. And of course, he ends, I think, in the summer of 2016, when they went back to Paisley Park to try to find some items to get the book started. Because at that point, the estate was trying to drum up income for this big tax bill that the estate was going to be hit with. And so they decided to go ahead and do the book so they could use the proceeds to pay off the taxes for the estate at that time. So anyway, so he starts off saying that, he starts off the introduction introducing the last time that he actually spoke with Prince over the phone. And he said that last time that he spoke to him, which of course he didn't know at the time that would be his last time speaking to him, that he sounded really tired, and he did sound like he was, that he had a cold. But Prince wanted Dan to know that he was okay and to not believe everything that you hear in the media about him being sick with the flu. He said that he had flu-like symptoms. And later on, that would be something that Dan will remember after Prince's death. So going on though, he talks about how he was chosen by Prince. So he didn't have any writing experience as far as books go. Before this, he was the editor of the Paris Review. And so he had a friend who was working with Prince's literary agent at the time. And the friend told Dan, look, hey, Prince is looking for a co-writer for his memoir. So he wants people to submit statements about their relationship to his music. So Dan submitted a statement about his music. And he said within the same day or the next day, Prince's people reached out to him and said, could he come to Paisley Park and meet with Prince? And so he met with Prince, and Prince told him that overall he liked what he had to say about his music, but he took contention with two things. One, he said that he didn't feel like people listening to his music was breaking the law, because that was something that Dan said that he felt when he was listening to Prince's music. And I think Prince probably took a little offense to that. And Prince is Prince, but let's be honest. I mean, not even Prince can tell you how to feel about his music. I mean, if that's how he felt, I kind of feel like that's how he felt, but that's just me. Another thing that Prince said that he took issue with Dan's statement is he felt that magical was not something, was a word that would describe his music. And he actually said that that was a word that you could use to describe Michael Jackson's music and not his music. So once again, Prince was very particular about how people viewed his music, because he viewed it one way. And I guess I don't know, sometimes Prince is weird in that he wanted people to see the music in the same way that he saw it. But and as smart as he was, he knew that, we're going to see his music how we see it. But he still wanted to project, his feelings and his thoughts on the world through his music, and he wanted people to interpret it a certain way. But anyway, they ended up getting along though. It was just, at times it was a little tense, as Dan described it, but they actually hung out, and he sat on a few of the concerts at Paisley Park, and then he actually also went to one of the shows, the piano and microphone tours that he did in Australia. He actually went to one of those, and he said that he noticed that the tour, which of course was Prince's last tour, was very telling in that it was almost storytelling style, and that it was reflective in the way that the memoir would be. And I think Prince at this time in his life, he was definitely reflecting on his past, and he used the piano on the microphone tour to express that reflective mood that he was in. And you can also tell in the memoir, and in his section of the memoir, that he was reflecting back on his past. He told Dan that, his first memory is of his mother winking at him. And I thought that was really sweet. And he talked about how he wanted chapters on, a whole chapter about his mother, because he said that his mother wasn't given enough credit for how his mother did help him, in his desire to be a musician. Because, Prince himself, he never really talked too much about his mother. But he said that in the memoir, he wanted to do that. He also wanted to talk about the music industry and how the music industry exploits Black artists, which is something, of course, Prince was very, very, very adamant about. And he was almost like a champion of artists' rights, because of his dispute with Warner Brothers in the early 90s. So he wanted to talk about that. He wanted to talk about racism and its impact on society. And he just wanted to talk about all these different things. And on top of that, this was going to be the first of many books that Prince was going to write. He intended to write books just like he did albums. He said he wanted to, take a break from doing music and just kind of focus on writing. And he was really interested in wanting to write more books. But unfortunately, he was not able to do that. And I hate that, because I really do think that just off of reading what Prince wrote in this book, it makes me think that he would have been a wonderful, wonderful writer of books. So I just, but there's nothing we can really say about that. That is what that is. But moving on. So in his section, Prince talked about his early life, and he gave a lot of examples from his childhood. He said that teachers didn't like his name Prince. So they would call him Skipper, and that he was often teased about his name. They called him Princess and things like that. He didn't say the princess in this book, but in other books, he has said that they called him princess and, all this type of stuff. So he really didn't go by his real name. But he talked about how his mother showed him how to write his real name, and that his mother had this most impeccable handwriting. And now he talked about how his mother was beautiful and his parents would dress up and go out and have a good time together, and how he just really liked how they vibed off of each other. Despite the fact that, they did end up getting a divorce, he kind of understood they were both alphas and that they just couldn't, their personalities were both so dominant that they just couldn't, make a marriage work. But he talked about cellular memory with Dan and the fact that he feels like that he inherited some traits from his mother and some traits from his father. And that made me think about the song When Doves Cry, when he was talking about, maybe I'm just like my mother, maybe I'm just like my father. And so that goes back to talking about cellular memory and how he wanted to also talk about that. I mean, Dan said they talked about in the first 90 minutes in that first meeting, they talked about God, they talked about love, they talked about race in America, the music industry, creativity, technology. But Prince told Dan one of the things that he really wanted to get out of this book was freedom. That was if there was any one overarching theme, it would be freedom. And he kept saying that. And when you look at the pictures, you can see how free Prince was. He was so young at the time, and he just wanted to get his music out there. And he was so anxious to become a star. But not so much even to become a star, but he just wanted to get his music out there, even if he didn't succeed in the way that he wanted. Now, of course, he wanted to, succeed, but at the time, he just wanted to get his music out there. So he also talked about a number of girls that he was associated with in high school and junior high school. But the first girl that he talked about was this white girl named Laura, who gave him his first kiss. She was a neighbor of his, and they would play house together. And she made Prince her husband. And Prince described it as, you would give your husband, those obligatory kisses, like when you leave to go to work, when you come home from work, and when you go to bed. And so Laura would kiss him, and those were his very first kisses. From an early age, like 5 or 6 years old. And then he talked about two women in particular that he talked about, this girl named Marcy and another girl named Petey. And that was her nickname. He believed her real name was Patricia. But Marcy was a woman who really first introduced Prince to like R&B music, because he wasn't really into that R&B music as much. He said at the time, he said that he rarely listens to songs that didn't have a guitar solo, because by this time he was playing the guitar, and his father actually bought him his first guitar. And so he was into, more rock style, funk music. So Marsha introduced him to R&B, and the R&B ballads in particular. There's a song called Show Me How by The Emotions that he said that she would just play over and over ad nauseum, to the point where he finally just decided to kiss her because he didn't want to hear the song 9 more times. And so I did put that up on the Facebook page, that song. So check it out if you get a chance. Also, another song that I put on was a Skin Tight by the Ohio Players. That was the song that he said that he met Petey at this house party. And he talked about how the house parties, back in the day would be really dark. And the only lights you would see would be like, if it was around Christmas time, like the Christmas tree lights, or, or some of the lights, the street lights outside. So he met her, and he said that he liked her because she had an afro like him, and that she had acne, and she was just different. She had a speech impediment, and so she would call him Prince. And there's actually a picture with Prince, and he actually said in the text, it would be like Prince and the revolution, but not with the I can't say it like that, revolution, but with the W. So I thought that was kind of funny. Now, the very end of his memoir, he talked about his sexual awakening with this girl named Kari, and the fact that she would wear like these, I think he was describing what we call rompers now that she would wear. And so, but then it cut off after that. And I'm just like, oh my God, this would have been so good. I wanted to know more about Kari and his whole sexual awakening. He said that he experienced his first like animal lust with her, having that lustful feeling of just wanting to physically be with someone. And so I'm assuming this is the first girl that he probably slept with. But it got cut off after that. And then it starts with the scrapbook. The scrapbook that he started in December of 1977, and it ended in April of 1978, which is when For You was released. So in the scrapbook, you see all these different pictures of him out in California when he was recording For You. And it's just like a very personal, look into, his world at the time. And also in the memoir, there's also in the memoir part of the book, you see early pictures of Prince when he was like a baby, and when he was a toddler, like he was sitting in front of this car, on this whole black and white picture. There's also pictures of like John Nelson's band, the Prince Rogers Trio. They had a set list. And I noticed on the set list that there was a song called Purple Deep, which I thought was interesting because, Prince's association with the color purple. So, and also like John Nelson's work badge from Honeywell was another picture. There's pictures of course, lyrics, of course, of his most well-known songs throughout the book, and also quotes from interviews that he did. And one quote in particular I was interested in that I actually want to quote directly because it gives you insight into the fact, that he was, of course, we all know that Prince was a multi-instrumentalist and a great multi-instrumentalist at that. But this gives you insight into why he was so great. He said that he thinks the main reason artists fall when they try to play all the instruments is because either they can't play all the instruments really well, there's usually a flaw somewhere, or they don't play with the same intensity on each track. It's a hard project to do, but you have to pretend each time that this is going to be your only track and that you're the only guy who's going to play that instrument. So every time you go into the recording booth, you have to play like it's your only shot. If you do that, what you end up with is a whole band that is playing with the same intensity. So he's basically saying you have to look at each instrument on a track as its own soloist. And once you look at it like that, in the bigger picture, you'll sound like a band yourself. And so that's why he was so good. His early records, when you hear Prince and and I almost said Dirty Mind, and 1999 and Controversy, when he was doing all of the playing on all of the instruments, you can hear that each instrument could really stand on its own. And the reason why it sounded like that is because of what he said. He's like, you have to act like this is your one shot. This is the one time that you can do this track. And so you have to do your very best. And so he was very, very, as we all know, very dedicated to his craft. And he wanted to help other artists to be just as dedicated and to own their work. Of course, in the introduction, he talked to Dan about the importance of artists owning their masters. And that's something that we hear when other artists talk about Prince. That's one of the things that they bring up that he talked about with them as well, the importance of owning your masters. He talked about racism and its effect on the Black community. He talked about funk and wanting to find a word for funk, which I thought was interesting, given that in other interviews, I've heard Prince say that you really couldn't give if you could give a word to it, it's not funky. So, but in this book, he attempted to try to find a word for funk. So, I mean, Prince's mind was just all over the place with this book. And there's no telling, I think it would have just been a masterpiece book had he been allowed to finish it. But I think that Dan did the absolute best that he could. And I think that if you're a Prince fan, you definitely need to at least check it out and kind of look at the pictures. The scrapbook pictures, like I said, are awesome. And the last part of the book is about his script. And it's only like a page and a half for Dreams. And he talks about, his inspiration for wanting to do the movie that would become Purple Rain. But at the end of the page and a half, all of this stuff that he's talking about is a dream. And so that's why he called it Dreams. But like I said, he had, different ideas for each character, for himself, for Vanity, and for Morris Day. And it would have been interesting to see how that would have panned out in a movie form. But because it would have been so dark, I really don't think it would have been as successful as Purple Rain was. I'm kind of glad that they decided to kind of redo the script, which they had to do anyway after Vanity left. But I'm kind of glad that they changed it because, Purple Rain is kind of like a rock opera. It's like a biopic, but not a biopic. It's a rock biopic, I guess. I don't know what am I trying to say, but it's basically like a big music video with a plot, and I think that worked. It worked for the time because, like Prince would say in one of his interviews, it was something that wasn't done a whole lot. So, or hadn't been done, except for maybe the Beatles with Dog's Day's Night. They did that, I think, in the late 60s. But other than the Beatles, I don't think anybody else that really did like a music movie like that. And of course, Eminem would go on in the early 2000s to do his version of Purple Rain with 8 Mile. So he kind of set a precedent with Purple Rain in doing that. But overall, like I said, I really enjoyed the book. Like I said, if you haven't read it, I don't know where you've been because it's been out for a while. And the pictures, like I said, are just wonderful. I mean, there's so many different pictures, and I really like the handwritten lyrics that you see of like songs like Soft and Wet and Little Red Corvette and Purple Rain. And the last one they put in there, of course, is The Beautiful Ones, which Dan mentioned that, Prince never did let anybody know who The Beautiful Ones was about. But I said in another episode that I believe that it was about Vanity. And Prince said as much, but didn't say as much in one of the last interviews he did in 2015 with Ebony Magazine. But The Beautiful Ones, I think, was a really great title for the book because, we always refer to Prince as being the beautiful one, which he was, absolutely. And I'm looking at the book right now, just thumbing through it, trying to make sure that I said everything that I wanted to say. You can also see Prince's, he's kind of comical. He has a couple of funnies in here. Just like different like little comic sketches and things that he did. So yeah, it's great. It's really great. So I know that probably wasn't the best review, but there's not really much to say about it past the fact that the memoir got cut off and you're just like, oh, I want more. And don't get me wrong, the scrapbook, like I said, is great. Wonderful pictures, great memories. But I just really wish that it feels to me, reading it feels so, it feels so unfinished. And I can appreciate what Dan and the estate did with it, but I just really, really wish that Prince had been able to finish it. But like I said, check it out. Definitely own it if you're a really big Prince fan like me. It's one of those books that you just have to own just because it's Prince, and it's the only book that we have that was written in his hand for the most part. So check it out when you can, and I'm going to go ahead and end the review right there. Up next, I'm going to be reviewing Sign of the Times. So I'm going to get back to reviewing Prince's albums. And I also might get back to doing my top 10, top 5, top 20 series that I had going on because that seemed to be pretty popular. So I'm going to try to keep that up. I think next time I'm going to do my top 5 favorite tearjerker Prince songs. So be on the lookout for those 2 episodes in the near future. I'm sorry it took so long to do this episode. It's just been crazy. I've been off all week, kind of enjoying my vacation. And so I just want to thank all of my listeners again. We're getting close to the start of the new year. And so I've got some things planned for the podcast. So if you're interested in wanting to come on and like have an interview or a conversation about Prince with me, just let me know. Hit me up on Facebook on Shades of Purple or Prince Podcast Facebook page. I would love to hear from you. I'm also probably going to go live before the end of the year to just talk about some more things and just say hello to everyone. So once again, thank you all for your continued support and just listening to the podcast. So with that, I'm going to sign off. So everybody, love you guys so much. Peace and be wild, and may you live to see the dawn. Bye.